Welcome back this Lent 2022 to the Cathedral Hall at St. Eugene's Cathedral here in beautiful Derry. In this beautiful spring weather, we're coming to the fourth Sunday of our Lenten journey. And there's a structure in the whole catechesis, the whole teaching, the whole way the readings of the Sundays are put together. And this Sunday, on the fourth Sunday, we have the parable of the Prodigal Son. The father, the son who goes away, and the other son who stays at home. And I think the reason why it's here at this stage in the Lenten journey is that people have been invited to acknowledge the things that they need to deal with in life. And there may be serious issues. There may be people who struggle with all sorts of things from their past, things that they did or things that happened to them or things they ended up being involved in one way or another, and might be afraid. And I think Jesus has a parable here that speaks to those who feel afraid of acknowledging their own past, feeling that God might not have time for them or space for them. In fact, in the Gospel of St. Luke, in chapter 15, it begins with Jesus dealing with tax collectors and sinners and eating with them and meeting with them and talking to them. And of course, the religious establishment criticizing him, saying you shouldn't be doing that. So he tells three parables, one of the wee lost sheep. The good shepherd leaves 99 in the wilderness and goes looking for the lost one. The woman who's lost one of her 10 coins and scours the house to look for the coin. And then comes to this wonderful parable of the prodigal son. One of the world's great short stories with all sorts of levels. So today, to reflect upon it, I have Niamh Laughlin. Niamh is a youth coordinator here in the Diocese of Derry, had done her undergraduate degree in theology and history. One of those young people who have a passion for studying who God is and what God means to us in the modern world, and then done postgraduate studies in pastoral leadership as well. So Niamh, thank you very much for being with me today to reflect on this gospel that comes as part of the Lenten journey. What are your initial reflections on that wonderful parable of the father, the son who wants to get his money and head off and then wastes it and ends up in trouble and wants to come back again, and the father welcomes him, and then the older brother is grumpy because he's been a good boy all his life, he never get a party for him, and so on. So what strikes you about the story? What do the characters in the story say to you?
Well, they say a lot.
Yeah.
It's hard to start or think of where to start. I suppose maybe I can come from a personal point of view. I really like this parable for many reasons. Personally, it's because maybe at times I can see myself as the prodigal son, in the sense that, you know, in life and in my experiences, focus was placed a lot on, you know, where I wanted to go and what I wanted, more so than what I suppose for me, it was where I wanted to go. I was like, yeah, I have to put my head down. I want a life of, you know, I want money, and I wanted this, and I wanted that, and I wanted to have a really good life, and I didn't really think of anything else. So I can kind of see myself as a prodigal son, where I wanted that life. It was what I wanted, and that was my goal in life, and I didn't think anything else would stop me. And I suppose going through college and things, I knew my plan. I had a plan. I wanted to do this, I wanted to do that, and nothing else was going to stop me. And then there came a point where I really stopped, and it all kind of went. So that luxury for me went, and I found myself in a space where I really had to stop and reflect on what it is that I wanted, but in the sense of what it was that I wanted that was good for me, not this life where I was running the rat race with everyone else. Trying to keep up with other people, trying to keep up with society's standards as well, you know. I see that as well with young people today, where we have so much pressure, where you're told kind of, you know, this is the life you should be living, you know, and there's money, and, you know, you've got to give yourself a lot of security and things like that. And I suppose I came to a point where I was like, is it even worth it anymore? You know, what is that life? Is that giving me any happiness, any joy? And I suppose, so yeah, when I think of the prodigal son and that parable, it really gives me a sense of reflection of where, you know, you want to go in life. And it's not all, there comes a point where it's not worth it anymore, that life that you've lived of luxury and that plan, it's too much. And I suppose then when I think of myself, I feel really grateful that I had the courage to turn around and be like, well, I want to go back, you know, I want to return. And I suppose for me, faith-wise as well, I wanted to return to the Father. I wanted to return to God, because for myself, I kind of strayed away from that as well. It wasn't a priority in my life. Faith wasn't a priority in my life whenever I was growing up and whenever I was a teenager and when I was in college. And there came a point in life where I says, no, I don't want to be like this anymore, and I wanted to go back. So I suppose for me, I see the Prodigal Son plays a very personal role. And yeah, it's a great reflection.
That's a good sharing. And certainly for the Prodigal Son, it meant him getting to a point of crisis. He spent all the money he had. It hadn't given him the happiness, and he ended up feeding pigs, which for Jewish people would have been seen as the absolute lowest you could possibly be reduced to. And then he said, well, I'll go back and I'll be a servant, I'll be a slave to my father. It's better than eating the pig's food. And that can be difficult, I imagine, for many people going through that sort of crisis where plans crumble.
Yeah.
And you have to rebuild, or let somebody else rebuild, or rediscover a new path.
Definitely, yeah. I suppose for me, you kind of see the line, the straight line. You think it's a straight line. You go from point A to B to C, but there is so much more that can come in, and it's a whole curve. There's roundabouts, there's obstacles. You don't know if you're going left, you're going right. And so yeah, it's not as straightforward, and you can get really bogged down in that. You think that you've got that sight, and you feel like it's within reach, and you nearly forget what's going on around you, and you lose sight. And that's the main thing, is that you can lose sight very easily, and it can take a lot to come back, and a lot of strength. And it can be a lot to deal with.
It takes a lot of courage, I would say, to say, well, look, that path I was going actually wasn't really going anywhere, even though everyone tells me it was.
Yes.
And then structuring a different path, becoming a youth coordinator, working for a Catholic diocese.
Yeah.
It really wasn't where you would have seen yourself.
Absolutely not. It's funny, my life, I suppose, when I look back, I was really into sports, really into it, wanted to. I played soccer, so I wanted to play for Ireland. That was my absolute dream goal. I had the opportunity, and didn't get in, and my whole world came tumbling down. I was like, so what am I going to do now? Like my plan has gone completely off. And then I was like, okay, that's fine, I'll just keep going. I thought I wanted to become a teacher. If you asked me about whenever I was 18, I did my leaving cert, I was like, yeah, I want to become a teacher, I'll do PE, and I'll do something else. Again, that plan went completely down the drain, and now here I am as a youth coordinator doing theology, and I suppose I never would have thought that this is what I was.
And can I ask how that sort of involvement in church came about, which certainly wasn't the direction you were going initially?
Yeah, I suppose there's a lot of factors, as I say, faith for me growing up wasn't really a priority. We might went to mass here and there. It was kind of like maybe at Christmas or an anniversary, things like that. I suppose what really got me into it was, I had a fantastic teacher. I went to Miville Community College, and I had a fantastic teacher, Mr. Tom Cabe. And I did religion, and again, I only did religion because of the timetable, the way my timetable worked out, and my only option was to do religion, and I thought, okay, that's fine, that's okay with me, and I fell in love with it. I fell in love with, like finding out about Christianity and Judaism and about timelines, about history and things like that. And then I was talking to someone, and they said, I think you should do theology in college, and I thought, never thought of it before, never came onto my radar. And then I looked into it, and I thought, okay, yeah, sounds really interesting. Did my 3 years in Maynooth, and then I suppose something kind of just changed. I don't know really what it was. There was a moment where I thought, you know what, I don't want to be a teacher anymore, but I want to explore this a little bit more, and that's why then I did my extra year, and I did a pastoral theology base where you actually had the chance to put, for me, I think it was put faith into action. And you got to learn off other people, and you got to see what life in the church is really all about. Because being from a young person too, I was probably a little bit biased. You don't want to be a part of the church. Why would I want to be a part of it? And things like that. And then something just changed, and then here I am, and it's been a wonderful journey. Where when I look back, I can see there were times where my plan wasn't going right, and I was going astray, and I was going off in all sort of directions. But then there was a point where I had that chance of turning around and coming back and making my way back.
And tell us, how do you find your work now with young people? Do you find that your story resonates with many of them?
I do. I find, you know, talking with young people recently, you know, we have the synod programs going on, we have various things going on, and a lot of things that young people were saying were, right now, faith is not a priority for them. You know, they're bogged down in exams, you know, stress. I suppose for me, I can see where, you know, they have to get into this is the college course I want, I have to get into this, you know, and they're defined by the points or the levels or the grades that they get. And so, you know, talking to them, they say that, you know, right now it's not a priority for them, and they just feel that if they talk about faith, they can't talk about faith in school. You know, in certain schools, you know, they may feel like they're being called names, you know, like, oh, you're a holy Joe, you know, are you going to join a convent? Which was something I got personally a lot whenever I said to people, you know, I studied theology, and right away they had an instant judgment of, oh, you're part of an institution, you're a part of, you know, you're going to join a nunnery and things like that. And then you're like, and it can be really hurtful because immediately it shuts down and doesn't leave room for conversation. And I suppose now for young people, it's, for us, that's really important, is to show them that it may not be a priority right now, but we are here. And the fact too, I find great encouragement that the fact that they take an hour out of their evening or an hour out of their day to join other young people, even though they have everything else going on. They may not go to mass every Sunday. They may not do that. They may not go to confession. They may not do other things, but they take that hour out because they do want something, but they just feel like the society and things that's going on, they just can't do it.
Yeah, and I suppose young people remain idealistic. It's an idealistic time of your life, and they remain idealistic. And I suppose many of them get disappointed that an awful lot of idealism is laughed at, because the emphasis really is on you should be a party animal, have a wild weekend, and that really is the best that life can get.
Yeah.
And I suppose you're trying to open up another door for them, which mightn't bear fruit for a while. Just a few days ago I got a message on LinkedIn, 'cause I'd been a school teacher, as you know, myself for many years in Belfast, from one of my past pupils who's kept in touch occasionally, saying, just thought you'd like to know, after many years away from faith and church, I'm back in Tokyo, involved in the life of the local parish there.
Fantastic.
And thank you for whatever you did for me as a school teacher. So I think God very much works long term. I suppose in the parable of the prodigal son too, it was the trust that the father had in the son who went away to say, yeah, if that's what you want to do, you go on. But no, I'm always here.
Yeah, definitely. And I suppose I can see that with young people as well. You know, they may not see maybe God even as a factor in their life right now. You know, as I say again, there's a lot of external things and they maybe feel pressured into different things. But I feel like for me personally, in the role that I have today, you know, I can, you know, maybe plant those seeds where you're like, that's okay, you know, we will take you as you are. And I think that's a very important thing with the synod process. You know, we're listening to them where they are right now. We're listening and we're accepting them for where they are right now. And hopefully in the long run, as I say, you know, they might look back on these experiences. If they do stray, if they might not, they never know what could happen. But they'll look back and be like, you know, they were there for me at that time. I learned a lot at that time, you know, and then one day, hopefully, come back.
Yes, but I suppose the story of the lives of many saints, Niamh, has been that they had a journey. They got to God by the scenic route, shall we say? You know, that many of them had calamities or tragedies or disasters or crises in their lives, and that actually became part of their strength as a person of faith. That they didn't just drift along saying, sure, go along to Mass and say my prayers, I'll do surely. But actually they had to come to a stage like yourself where you had to say, what do I believe? And maybe not what do I believe, but what do I deep down in my heart feel is what I'm called to be? Where's the next step on this journey? In terms of our ministry and our working with young people, what do you think are the main things I should be talking about or conscious of or facilitating or enabling people? Because I'm an old guy. I may have worked with young people for many years in schools many years ago, But I mean, I need advice from young people who are journeying like yourself as to what things I should be talking about. What's it important for young people to hear? Because Jesus said this is a parable that people need to hear, that will give encouragement to those who feel left out. What do I need to be saying in Jesus' name nowadays?
Oh,
In a modern context, yes. Or you know, what from the synodal process are you
Yeah.
maybe hearing from young people about what's important to them?
Okay, I suppose coming back to the parable, you know, we have the older brother, you know, he came along and he said, oh, what's going on here? I see a party happening. And one of the servants tells him, well, you know, your brother has returned. And he gets really angry and he was like, you know, I've been here all along and I've done everything perfectly. I've done everything that you asked and I didn't even get, well, I think he says a kid in the gospel, you know, and I can't even celebrate with my friends. And I suppose for a young person today, they might see that, you know, they compare maybe themselves to that, you know, that I go to Mass every Sunday, or they see someone who goes to Mass every Sunday, they can recite the rosary with their eyes closed, and a young person might not know that, or they are maybe unsure of their faith, you know, or even perhaps something as simple as Mass, they're not sure how this is working, how that's working, they might not even know what's going on, and they immediately feel, well, I can't do that. You know, I don't go to Mass every Sunday. I don't know how to say the I don't know how to say the rosary. I don't know how to do this, and I don't know how to do that. And immediately they feel that they are being shunned a little bit, or they may feel a little bit unworthy and fearful. And so again, furthermore, they shy away from that. And through that synod process, you hear a lot of. I feel I'm hearing a lot of that. You know, they feel like, oh, well, I don't go to Mass. I'm not like the older brother in the parable. I don't do things perfectly, so am I even worthy to be here? And that's a big thing, I think, with young people, is that they feel if they do, you know, do things perhaps that even maybe people will judge them for, they feel like they can't come back, or they feel like they're not worthy to be heard and be listened. And through this synod process, we are trying to open up our arms a little bit more and say, well, we want to hear what your experiences is. You know, we want to hear how you feel, and it's a safe, non-judgmental place for you to come and just say those things. So I suppose they do. It would be that sense of unworthiness, that because they feel like they're not doing what maybe a lot of people in the church are doing, then they're not worthy to even be a part of it.
Yeah, a bit like the prodigal son who goes away and thinks, I'm not worthy to come back, but I'm hungry. The best I can get is a job as a servant on my father's estate. And yet the whole thing is that in some ways, the parable tells us that God bypasses institutions, that he's standing, waiting, longing for this beloved child to come back, just like the shepherd who goes for the one lost sheep and leaves the 99 others, the woman who goes looking for the one coin even though she's 9 others. Not just that God says, okay, you can come back, he's yearning for people to come back to know the love of the Father. And there's a lovely title that Pope Francis had for his document to inaugurate the year of mercy that he had in 2016. Jesus is the face of the Father's mercy. I just thought that's a powerful image. You can look at the face of Jesus and see the love of the Father saying, it doesn't matter. I'm just delighted that you're here. I love you. Your life is precious to me. Of course I want you to be back. Don't worry about what's gone on, whether you've wandered. That's all part of your journey. I mean, it's a powerful story in that sense, because I imagine many young people end up in situations where they end up doing things they hadn't really planned to do, or they were pressurized into doing, and then they feel embarrassed about it and not sure should they be proud of it or ashamed of it, or I mean, that must be a struggle, because there are so many pressures coming on them in terms of saying that's what's expected of you, that's what you should be doing, that's what that's what normal people do, as the title of the TV series said.
Or I suppose it's another thing as well. I didn't do that whenever I was your age. They can be very much seen as a tick box exercise, young people, and you know, there's prejudice before you even open your mouth to young people. You know, oh well, sure, you know, you should be doing that, you should be doing this. I did that whenever I was your age, and you know, people could be a little bit older, and you know, it's at different times, but they're not having that conversation with young people. You know, they're not asking the questions, well, what do you think? What is your experiences? But right away, and I find that with the synod process as well, they are being just shut off because they're not meeting probably what other people expect them in their heads to meet or experience, and so yeah, they feel that way.
And yet I think that, yeah, the prodigal son in the parable actually has a wonderful story to tell. You
Yeah.
know, he's such a wise person now. He's got a wisdom because of his wayward ways that the older brother who stayed at home and behaved himself actually doesn't have.
Yeah.
He's a wiser person. He's much more adult. He's taken responsibility for decisions. He's been in the dark place. And I know walking around the town here, certainly on a Saturday, you see so many young people hanging around the corners, many of them seriously addicted to drink. Knowing that they're in a difficult situation and just not knowing where to turn. And I suppose I'm struggling as church to say, how do we reach out to the people that Jesus wanted to reach out to? Not just to the ones that come into the church, but how do we reach the ones that actually are looking for a fresh start in their lives and haven't any idea where to look?
Yeah, that's tough as well. You think, what can I do? Is there anything I can do? And sometimes though you might get bogged down that too. You're like, I'm not doing enough. I'm not doing the things maybe I should be doing, but you've got other things going on where great things are happening, but you feel like there's so much you want to do, but there's only so much that you can do, and it's really tough. But I find what really helps for me anyways, I just be yourself with young people. They don't need they don't need to be taught like children. They don't need to be, shunned down or shut down, but if you literally just talk to them, it could be, a great opener is, what's your favorite Netflix show, or, or what have you been done at the weekend, are you working, things like that, and it really gets them going, but it gets them to open up to you, and the fact if you just be yourself with young people, they don't need anything else other than that, and that's a major thing.
And they know a fake when they see one.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that, again, can be really, really damaging.
Well, Niamh, thank you so much. You've told a story. Just as the parable of the prodigal son is a story, you've told your own story. And I suppose part of your ministry and all our ministries is to help young people to be able to retell their story in a way that generates hope for them.
Yes.
In a way that talks about healing or a fresh start or love or forgiveness or reconciliation, rather than that was bloody awful. That was, that actually enables them to look with compassion on their past, just as the father does with the prodigal son. And maybe that's part of our journeying, is to enable them to tell their story, but tell it in a different way, that speaks not of terrible things or sad things or mistakes, but actually talks about being welcomed, being loved, being at peace with the past, and looking forward to the future with confidence. Niamh, that's been a fascinating conversation arising out of a gospel. Thank you so much for being with us this morning to tell your story. I hope that story has resonated with many of you, both the story of the parable of the prodigal son and Niamh's own personal story. Jesus is always waiting for us to be able to look at our past with compassion and look to the future with hope. And the smiling face of the Father is always ready whenever you want to come along. And please God, the institutions of the church will be much more open than sometimes they were in the past, to welcoming, to receiving, and to celebrating the return of those who look for life and life to the full in Jesus. Thank you for journeying with us this Advent Sunday. God bless. Please God, we'll see you soon next week, hopefully. God bless. Laughlin.